What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the Whop Media YouTube channel. My name is Sean Bernard as usual, and I'm excited to announce that for this video, we have partnered with Whop.com, WHOP.com. Whop is an all-in-one marketplace for sports communities and other digital products. If you're looking to find communities on all things sports, sports capping, sports betting, and sports fandom, head to Whop.com/sports. They're the all-in-one digital marketplace, the Amazon of the future for digital products. I'm incredibly proud and excited to be partnering, so make sure to go check that out. You can click the link in our description and our comments. Thank you to Whop for sponsoring this video, and thank you to you guys for tuning in.
Going down the field, can they do it again? Yes, they can!
And the catch is made by Taj Washington. Touchdown, USC.
Blocked by Embiid! Timmy, yes!
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Beef Upfront podcast. This is your host, Ryan Coyle, joined by Joe Kmetz for our upsetting season finale here. It's the last episode of the college football season as we dive into the college football playoff national title game preview tonight. Bit of a shorter episode, only one game to cover, so we'll kind of get into everything we can going into this game, maybe recap last week's games a little bit from the semifinals. But welcome back, Joe. Happy New Year, and how are we?
I'm fantastic, Coyle. Thank you for Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you as well. Feels good to be back, doing this show together rather than the weird last week. We're doing it, sending videos and stuff, piecemealing it together. Feels good to be back. It does suck. It's bittersweet. I've said it the last two national title previews you and I have done, but last game of the season, but hopefully it's going to be the best game of the season. I mean, we had two amazing playoffs, the best playoffs yet. Only 3 times before this year that the playoff games were decided by single digits. It happened twice this year. Fantastic. TCU is only the 7th team to play in the national title game since the playoffs started, like the 7th original team. Mm-hmm. So it's fantastic. It's a historic playoff. It's a historic national title game, and I'm ready to get into it.
Yeah, it's definitely a matchup I think a lot of people did not see coming during the regular season. Maybe if you throughout Texas or Oklahoma, it would have been a little less surprising. But here's TCU. I guess can't really signify them as a Cinderella, I guess, just because they had such a good whole regular season. It's not like the NCAA tournament where it's like a 9 seed. But if this was the beginning of the year and you said TCU Georgia in the national title game, people would look at you like you had 8 heads. So it's a cool matchup. And like you said, Joe, it's fun to have a different team playing in this game and have the chance to dethrone Georgia as they go for back-to-back. So without further ado, we'll get into it. Monday, January 9th, 2023 will be this game. Number 3 seed, TCU at 13-1 versus number 1 Georgia, who comes in at 14-0, 7:30 on ESPN. Line opened at 13.5. It is now, recording this on Thursday, down to 12.5. So Georgia minus 12.5 here, over under 62.5. Before we get into our predictions and our picks for the spread, the over-under, and who's going to eventually win the game, let's just go like we did last week for our picks for the keys to the game. And we'll start off with the number 1 overall team with Georgia. What's your key to the game for them?
So my one big key for them is to keep Stetson Bennett comfortable. I mean, we've seen it the last 2 playoff games, the national title game last year, and even against Ohio State. The first half, even like the first 3 quarters, he didn't look that steady. He looked, you'd think a 25-year-old kid who's been here before. It's not like this is new to him. Georgia's he has one of the best teams ever assembled over the last 2 seasons built around him. And he's just seemed uncomfortable until the 4th quarter. And then, he wakes up. But the one thing that TCU does is they play every game on acid. Like every game they've played has been hectic, chaotic. One of the most wild seasons ever, like in the history of college football, whether they win or lose this game. So many games came down to the 4th quarter. So many even like you saw last week. Every time Michigan seemed like they were about to come back and take the lead, they brought it to within 3 at one point. Then boom, Quentin Johnson, 76-yard touchdown. If Stetson throws a bad pick and he's not comfortable, because J.J. McCarthy, even though he had a ton of passing yards, still had 2 bad pick sixes, didn't look that comfortable the whole game. If they can do that to Stetson Bennett, Georgia is going to be in a lot of trouble. And, I mean, that TCU thrives off of chaos.
Yeah, that was one of the things I saw a clip, like Kirby Smart said it right after the game, uh, Ohio State wound up missing that field goal, and he was getting interviewed after the game, the announcer said something along the lines of like, how proud of you are of Stetson for like kind of, I guess, maybe like coming out of his shell and kind of carrying you to that comeback. And he was like, well, he's just got to play within our system pretty much, and we wouldn't have been in that position in the first place. He's got to like do what he's coached, do what he's told to do. So that's I agree with you, Joe. A big key for Georgia in this one, make him comfortable, and that was kind of my thing with Georgia last week. Get ahead and stay ahead, and so you don't have to come back and panic like they did, and get lucky with Ohio State missing that field goal at the end of the game. So, big thing coming up this week, I think, is definitely going to be the play of Stetson Bennett, as always with the quarterback spot. My key to the game for Georgia is going to be to contain Quentin Johnson. Probably going to be the number one receiver off the board in the draft this April. When you look at Marvin Harrison Jr. last week for Ohio State, he had 5 catches, 106 yards, and 2 touchdowns, and it looked like he was on his path to probably getting 7-8 catches, over 150 yards, and maybe even a third touchdown before he got knocked out of the game with that concussion. My key for the game last week for Ohio State was for Marvin Harrison to win his battles against that Georgia secondary, and he did that. He was dominating. And then he gets hurt. He misses the rest of the game, and Georgia's able to come back, and Ohio State loses. Johnson last week against Michigan went for 6 catches, 163 yards, and 1 touchdown. If he's able to replicate that performance, just like Marvin Harrison does, and he's like able to play the whole game, be out there consistently posing a threat, that's really going to be hard for Georgia to contain. I think we saw with Marvin Harrison last week. I know Georgia's got a lot of NFL future defensive players out there, but when they match up against these elite receivers, they haven't really been able to contain them that well. So if Quentin Johnson's able to play the whole game and put up similar numbers, it's gonna be Georgia's demise, I think. So containing Quentin Johnson, finding a way to just, I guess, maybe abandon kind of the game plan that they had against Marvin Harrison and really try and work up something new against Quentin Johnson this week. I think that's the big key for Georgia in this one to win this game. All right. Now we head over to the TCU side of the football. I'll go with my key for TCU first. It's going to be getting off the field on third down on defense. When you look at Georgia, they are the 7th best team in the country at converting third downs, and TCU is 35th. That's like an upper third of the country, but still, Georgia converting the 7th best or having the 7th best conversion percentage on third down, being able to just get in those plays where they can get a 3rd and 2 for Stetson Bennett, and all he has to do is hit Brock Bowers for like a 5-yard out and get a first down. If they're able to do that and consistently move the ball down the field, I think it's going to be hard for TCU to win this game. I think this game could very well come down to if TCU is able to get off the field or not. Last week, Georgia was only 2 of 10 on third down after being really good for the whole year. And you look at Ohio State, they were right there till the end, and they probably should have won that game. They had every chance to win it, and they just weren't able to secure it at the end. I think you're going to look for TCU to kind of emulate a lot of the strategy and the game plan off of film this week that Ohio State incorporated into their game plan last week to keep this Georgia team, who's been super good all year on third down, to a unrespectable 2 of 10. So getting off the field on third down, if they're able to do that, limit Stetson Bennett and all those weapons that he has around him, possessions, I think that's going to be huge for TCU. So getting off the field on third down is my key for them.
Yeah, Coyle, I agree with you. Like you were saying before, I mean, they did really bad, Georgia, extending drives on third down in the semifinal. But, I mean, all regular season, I mean, that's kind of been their MO, just controlling the tempo, controlling the flow of the game. And if TCU can even have half of what Ohio State did last week, they'll definitely be in business to win this game. But my key for TCU comes on the offensive side of the field, and that is the run game, plain and simple. Kendre Miller was just going off starting the game last week. He got hurt. DeMercado comes in. You think, all right, TCU's going to maybe abandon the run. He just goes off. He had 150 yards last week on 17 carries. Absolutely gashed the Michigan defense. Besides that one fumble, which could have cost him the game, he was lucky that TCU was able to hang on because that was a huge flip of the switch for Michigan. But Michigan has a stout defense pretty similar to Georgia. And last week, both starting running backs combined for 207 yards on 32 carries. That's like 6.5 yards per carry, roughly. If Georgia can't stop this TCU rushing attack, because Max Duggan can also do it with his legs if needed, which we saw in the Big 12 title game when he, willed them into overtime against Kansas State. If they can get the run game going, take some pressure off of Max Duggan and let, Max Duggan have the ball in his hands and, be able to sling the rock. I mean, TCU is going to be in business. We're going to get into our predictions in a minute, but TCU, there's nothing like counting TCU out in this game. That's we're going to get into predictions now, but I'm not counting TCU out at all.
Yeah, that was my key to the game last week for TCU, finding it, or it was for Michigan, was stopping the run. They were third, I believe, coming into that game in rushing yards per game allowed. And then, as you said, Joe, TCU ran for over 200 yards on them. If they're able to kind of bring that same formula to now against Georgia's defense, that's going to make them tough to stop. And when they also can combine what they showed last week, being able to score on defense as well, and then having those big explosive plays with Quentin Johnson too, it's pretty easy to see, I guess, why they've been able to just consistently rack up wins all year. But if they are able to run the ball and keep the defense honest and throw the ball to Quentin Johnson as well, I think they're going to be right there at the end. So without further ado, we have our final game breakdown and prediction on the year. Last college football game of the season. Joe, take us away. What are your picks for this game? Spread, outright winner, and as well as the over-under.
So my outright winner, even though I won't be rooting for this whatsoever, it's Georgia. I have them winning 45-35. And now I'm not saying that they're going to, be in control the whole way. I think this is going to be a back and forth game. I think there's going to be a crucial turnover from TCU late. The magic, I feel like, is going to run out. I am hoping I'm wrong with every fiber of my being. I'm probably going to bet TCU money line. I'm definitely taking them plus 12.5, which I have here. And I'm definitely going to be taking the over in the game. But I just feel like, Georgia coming off that performance last week, Kirby Smart saying what he said, in that post-game press conference, kind of ripping his team, not really celebrating too much. I wouldn't be surprised if, Georgia comes out and wins this game by double digits. But I think TCU, 12.5 is a huge number for a national title game. I don't anticipate this to be like the national title game in 2012 when Notre Dame got absolutely murdered. Like, I know TCU is a Cinderella story, but I don't think they're going to lose that badly. Like, I even like having them at 10 points is crazy to me. I think they're going to definitely be able to keep this game close. I mean, all season TCU has been counted out. There's no reason to count TCU out. Like, if there's people out there that think, TCU has no chance, get that out of your head, because this TCU team all season long, and really in that Big 12 title game, they said Max Duggan was short when he extended that football, but I think he was in watching the game. TCU, I mean, they could complete one of the greatest runs in college football history. First Big 12 team to make the college football playoff national title game. First Big 12 team to beat a national title since 2009. So, people making a big deal also, this is a little side note, I'm getting a little tangent here, about Texas and Oklahoma leaving. I think the Big 12 is going to be just fine. I think TCU is going to be just fine. I think Max Duggan's going to have an absolute nuclear game. I don't think Stetson Bennett is capable of that. As we've seen kind of his whole career, he benefits from the rest of his team doing their job. He is kind of like, you could put me at quarterback at Georgia, and they're probably going to go 9-3, 10-2.
Wow.
It's bold, I know. But if I can do a little 5-yard dump off pass to Brock Bowers and watch him do his thing, I think we'd be just fine. Probably struggle against Tennessee, probably struggle against, the top teams in the SEC. But I think I can go out and pass for 200 yards against Vanderbilt if I had Georgia's offense around me. Wow. So give me the Dogs, even though I will be praying that TCU wins. And just finally we can stop the miracle story of Stetson Bennett.
I mean, we can't pick the same team for the national title game, right? So we're going with TCU here with Beef's official pick. I'll take them 37-35. So we go TCU plus 12.5, winning outright, and then over 62.5. I think we flip the fortunes here with TCU winning this game on a last-second field goal, knocking off Georgia after I think they should have lost that semifinal game, was outplayed pretty much from start to finish. Had a few things go their way down the stretch, including that missed field goal by Ohio State. I just don't want to see, like you, Joe, Stetson Bennett running around the field celebrating again like he's Peyton Manning. TCU, though, Joe, has been featured on our show. I went through and counted 6 different times, I think, on our 13 or 14 shows that we had this year. I'm pretty sure they were our most featured team and, like, the team that where when we would be breaking down our 5 games, I feel like we would always spend the most time talking about them just because they were so out of nowhere. And then just each and every week was just such like an exciting game that they were part of. And then they made it to the Big 12 title game, fell there. We said all season that we thought their luck would run out, and I think maybe that was it. They had the second spark, the second life. They will go, they destroy Michigan, which no one really was expecting. It's put up all that points on arguably the best defense in the country. And I know I picked them to cover last week, but I wouldn't have been surprised at all if they lost by 3 touchdowns just because of the way that they lost in that Big 12 championship game. I just feel like that was like a demoralizing loss, but this group is just different. I think they just respond to adversity really well. Been just such a fun team to watch and cover all year, and they just seemingly answer the bell each and every week. It would be a damn shame though, after all this success, that they can't take home one championship. I know they lost the Big 12, or if they find a way to lose this game as well. After all that, and they finished 13-2 with no ring to show for it, would be pretty upsetting. But I think they're going to find a way to do this one. I hope Max Duggan has a game of his life and just shuts up Stetson Bennett for good. We don't see him back on a football field, and he's down in Georgia selling insurance for Allstate or something after this. Horned Frogs Nation, let's ride, let's go. Game winner from 44 yards out. Put that in your bet slip. That's going to be the game-winning kick. Season of a lifetime here for TCU, and a really exciting game to cap off another great college football season.
I mean, I'll definitely bet 37-35 exact score. If I can find a book that says method of winning and it's a game-winning field goal from 44 yards out, I'll put $1 on it. Because, I mean, listen, you have the call of a lifetime with South Carolina money line at plus 1,000. So there's no reason why you can't do it again. So I hope you're right. I don't know. Georgia isn't at the point yet where they're like the next Alabama. If they win this year, then we're definitely
in the conversation.
Like that, but it's just, if they had any other quarterback, I'd be like, all right, Georgia, good for them. But
I even liked him last year, and I thought it was a cool story with everything that he went through to get the starting job. But this year is just annoying me.
It's his face. He has a very, very punchable face.
Yep.
And it's not his fault. He's probably one of the nicest guys ever. But, like, it's just that image of him when Ohio State missed the kick and he's running out doing
arms odd.
Oh.
All right, well, that'll do it. Another year down of college football here on Beef Up Front, in full college basketball swing now after this, after watching that game on Monday night. But any last second comments, Joe, before we head out?
Year 3. It's been a pleasure. 3 years down. That's crazy. 3rd year of Beef college football.
Yes, sir.
On to season 4 next time. We'll be talking to you again, college football in late August for week 0.
Yep, week 0. All right, we'll see where we're at this time next year for week 0. But thank you, everyone who's listened and followed along the way this year, and we will talk next season.